please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome. We are cutting into regular programming to get you this breaking story. Important notification coming in from Axis Bank. Axis Bank on the 8th of December 2017 had clarified that they will be extending their decision to reappoint Shikha Sharma as the managing director for a period of 3 years with effect from 1st June 2018, subject to the receipt of requisite approvals. Now, in this specific area, Shikha Sharma, the managing director and CEO of the bank, has requested the board to reconsider the period of her reappointment as the managing director and CEO of the bank to be revised from 1st June 2018 up to 31st December 2018. The board has accepted her said request subject to the approval of the RBI. So while yes, the RBI approval is just procedural, this is something that has come in right now. We have Ritu Singh with us. Ritu, put this into perspective. My first question to you is, quickly take us through the background of what has happened at Axis Bank over the last 1 month. Also, we had expected, of course, Shikha Sharma to continue. So what has changed over the last few months?
Well, in light of the performance of Axis Bank over the last not just 1 month, but a longer period of time, since the asset quality review, since then the bank has not really been able to get back on its feet. The NPA problems have persisted. During demonetization also, the bank took a big hit. All of these issues have been plaguing the bank. In the midst of all of that, Shikha Sharma was reappointed again for a period of 4 years, effective 1st June this year, by the board just last year when she was due to retire. Now this, we understand, was questioned by the Reserve Bank of India, and the board was asked to explain why Shikha Sharma had been reappointed rather, for a period of 4 years in the light of how the bank had been performing. Responding to that, we understand that this board meeting today was called where Shikha Sharma has asked that the term of a reappointment be shortened to just 6 months versus the 4 years that earlier had been decided. In the board meeting today, Shikha Sharma had asked the board to reconsider her appointment as the managing director and CEO of the bank in effect from 1st June 2018 to 31st December 2018. That is only a 6-month period. This, of course, comes after Reserve Bank of India's request to the board to reconsider the appointment and to explain it. Now, with this, the board will again have to take this proposal back to the Reserve Bank of India with the revised term that Shikha Sharma would want to step down as the managing director and CEO of Axis Bank come December. So this is the latest development. I wouldn't say very much on expected lines, but it has come as a surprise. Shikha Sharma.
Okay, I get the point you're making, Ritu. It isn't as much of this is an unexpected line, but it doesn't come as a surprise. I get that, but is this just performance issues that could be the trigger for why Shikha Sharma does not want to continue?
From what we understand, yes, purely it is the financial performance of the bank, which is why Reserve Bank of India had asked the board to explain the terms of the reappointment, which is why we understand, as far as we know, that the board has come to this decision that Shikha Sharma has conveyed her decision to retire earlier than previously planned.
Okay, fair enough. We have J.N. Gupta joining in, and Shireen is also joining in on the conversation. Mr. Gupta, before I come to you, let me get Shireen's word in. Shireen, the point that Ritu was making was that it was the performance that was questioned by RBI, and that is why they had sought that clarity. But could there be other areas? Of course, we can't guess at this point in time, but what could be the trigger here?
Well, if you go back a few days, we had put together a report card of what could have been the possible triggers that have led to this eventuality. Now, remember, as Axis Bank's board itself is saying, that they had cleared Shikha Sharma's reappointment in December, 8th of December 2017, and that was the letter that had been sent to the Reserve Bank on the 8th of December 2017, informing them of the board's decision to reappoint her. So the question now is that why has it taken the Reserve Bank, up until almost March to come back and say, look, we have an issue with the reappointment, which is what we have been reporting on and which neither side have denied. So it is very clear that the Reserve Bank has expressed its apprehension to the Axis Bank board, And this, in a way, is an honorable exit for Shikha Sharma. There's been a lot of speculation around what has transpired, what has finally led to this eventuality. But there are several issues that we understand from sources that have been the bones of contention, starting with the performance of Axis Bank during the demonetization period. The feeling was that, that there was not enough checks and balances that were put in place to try and ensure that the kind of laundering that happened during that time could have been averted, could have been avoided. That specifically seems to have gone down poorly with the government. And of course, there are other issues related to the divergence, which was quite significant. And of course, also the NPA performance, which of course, is at par or perhaps a little worse than its peers. But these could have been some of the considerations that have led to this decision. But the fact that now Shikha Sharma has requested that her reappointment be cut down to a period of 6 months, basically, and the board agreeing to this, I guess they had no choice, with the regulator basically saying that, they were not in favor of her reappointment. It was going to be very untenable for Shikha Sharma or the board of Axis Bank to continue. And so this is an honorable way of putting this matter to rest. And I would imagine that that this could now be the precedent for what could happen in another case which involves a private sector bank, and we are talking about ICICI Bank. But let me not jump the gun here. Let's go across to Mr. J.N. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, this is now official. The Axis Bank board telling the Reserve Bank of India that Shikha Sharma has requested that her reappointment be reconsidered. Your first reaction, sir?
So my first reaction is very simple, that if there was an issue with performance of Axis Bank under leadership of Shikha Sharma, then the board itself should have taken note of it and not appointed her. Now, if the board has appointed her for 4 years and the Reserve Bank finds fault with it and then comes back to the bank and asks it to reconsider, the board reconsiders, and it is managed that Shikha Sharma herself requests that let me go after 6 months, then that speaks a volume in the sense that either the board was not correct in the first place, or they did not evaluate it properly, or if they were 100% confident that Shikha Sharma is a good leader and there was nothing wrong, then they should have gone back to the regulator and said that please tell us what are the reasons and we'll satisfy you. So here, as it happens in many other places, that the board either has succumbed to pressure of RBI or the board was wrong in the first place itself. But anyway, for Shikha Sharma is an honorable exit rather than messing up the whole thing, which she has voluntarily decided to go. But I would say, again, the question of transparency remains everywhere in our country, be it ICICI, be it here, or be it any other corporate, because the real reasons of somebody's departure or appointment are not known. It is only that whatever is convenient is put in public domain.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as investors who have actually put money into, the Axis Bank stock, do people not have the right to know from the regulator what was their specific concern that has led to the regulator asking the Axis Bank board to reconsider? And as you pointed out, if the board supported her reappointment as, recently as the 8th of December when it wrote to the Reserve Bank, what has made the board capitulate at this point in time? These are answers that we don't have. And while it may put the matter to rest with Shikha Sharma's exit, it speaks poorly of governance, not just at the level of the Axis Bank board, but also at the end of the regulator.
See, I would again say, Shijin, that a couple of days back or about 20 days back, the RBI governor has claimed that he has no power, nothing. Now the RBI has demonstrated its power. Now, if something was wrong with Shikha Sharma or Axis Bank under the leadership of Shikha Sharma, and the demonetization issues happened way back in 2016, and so they could have taken action in entire 2017. What was the need for them to take action when the reappointment is coming? Because if you find somebody is not correct, you can ask the person to go midway. So the issue is very clearly that it is a decision by convenience of all the parties concerned. And that is not a fair thing as far as the investors or depositors are concerned. Because if I, as a regulator, I find something wrong somewhere, I should step in there and then. Why wait for a year?
And the reappointment was cleared by the Axis Bank board in December, and we're now in April. And the regulator has expressed its apprehension as late as the end of March. So what has changed? And we don't have the answer to that question.
I will tell you what has changed. The change has happened for the first time in the history of Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank came under scrutiny of public eye, and they were criticized. And in order to ward off any criticism, they said, okay, let us act somehow. So to me, the Shikha Sharma becomes the first victim of regulators' activity rather than anything else. Because it's very, very clear. You remember, you have been covering Reserve Bank for so long. Never before Reserve Bank has been criticized except during demonetization of this episode. So they have demonstrated that, yes, we also mean business.
Okay, let's, Mr. Gupta, please hold on. We also have Ajay Srinivasan with us. Ajay, thanks very much for joining us. This is the news that's just coming in. Shikha Sharma has asked the Axis Bank board to reconsider her reappointment. The Axis Bank board has approved that, and obviously this is, while it's a formality to say that it is pending RBI approval, the fact is that the RBI is the one that has pushed the Axis Bank board to take this call. What do you make of it, Ajay, and what does it mean now for the stock?
Shalini, I'm Ajay Srinivasan. My good friend Srinivasan is not here. Ajay Srinivasan.
Sorry, Ajay.
That's all right. I don't want to attribute my comments to him. But anyway, I think, listen, we can quibble about what they could have done, should have done, and so on and so forth. But this is eerie similar to what happened in Infosys. A poor board and a problematic CEO. This decision should have been taken long back. Now that it has been taken, I wonder why this December 31st. It should have been straight away. You get out of the bank right now. There have been too many issues with this bank, the disclosures, and more important, leave aside the disclosure issues. You saw the 5,000 crore NPA problem, which RBI highlighted, and all the demon issues. But the point was, in terms of pure performance, it's been a poor performance compared to other private banks. Therefore, I don't see any reason. What is this that I request extension till December, we approve till December. If the bank sees new leadership, just change it now. What is the December business going to be? But having said that, it's a great positive for the stock. I think it's a great positive for the bank because this is a great negative which is hanging on the bank and the valuation for a long time. And the sooner this happens, sooner the ICICI Bank changes and the troika of ICICI Bank is out of the banking system, I think it will do wonders to this bank stock, believe me. So I think it's a great move. It's a very good development for the investors concerned. But I don't buy this December 31st logic. What is the logic? We have enough leadership in all institutions to take care of, banks like Axis Bank. So I'm not very clear about December 31st, but I think it's a great positive for the bank and the stock.
Ajay, do you believe that this could now set the precedent perhaps for what could follow even when it comes to ICICI Bank? I mean, a lot of commentators, a lot of people are suggesting that at least till the investigating agencies given all clear, there should be a change in leadership, which so far the board has sort of steadfastly stood by Chanda Kochhar. But given what we've seen happen now, do you expect that maybe we could see regulatory intervention from the Reserve Bank there as well?
See, that's why I say, Shireen, this is so eerie, similar to Infosys. Till in the Infosys system, the shareholders didn't get the chairman of Infosys out. No change was going through. The Infosys board, if you remember it, was supporting the MD CEO right till the last day, till the chairman itself was asked to move out. This is so similar to that. If you don't change the board, this board is a convenient board appointed by the CEO. If you look at the history of this board, they gave a clean chit on day one before even the first investigation was done. So you don't expect this board to do anything. I don't think this board of ICICI Bank will do anything at all. Either the RBI comes in or there is a new step taken on the investigation. But as I said, too many issues with the integrity and the reputation of the CEO is not good for any bank's leadership. More important, look at the performance. ICICI Bank quotes at less than about 1.7 times book value, and net of all the subsidiaries, 1 time book value. HDFC Bank quotes at 5 times book value. Now, in the last 4 years, look at the respective performances. Leave aside all the issues on the integrity. What about the performance-based evaluation? Why does the board have a CEO who's who is running the bank on the worst basis among all private banks for the last 5 years. Is there no reason to look at competence or performance at all? I'm not even saying the judgment on this case. I'm saying pure performance-wise, there was no rationale for either Axis Bank board or ICICI Bank to continue with the CEOs today, tomorrow, and day after.
Right. Mr. Gupta, let me just pick up on that point that Ajay made. Do you now expect RBI to intervene even in the ICICI Bank matter, given what we've seen happen here?
See, again, I would say it will all depend upon what RBI thinks. If RBI thinks that they have to act more and more to ensure that their authority is established, probably they will act. And I agree with Ajay's point of view. See, that is what I say, that in our country, most of the places, the evaluation process is a farce. You don't look into evaluation based on parameters which are real parameters. You keep on going on the basis of repetition. But I think I will not agree with Ajay on one issue, on the Infosys. Infosys was a different case. It is a different case. Infosys, it is a battle of ego between Mr. Murthy and other board members. Here, it is not a battle of ego. It is a issue of non-performance which has been highlighted by RBI. It is an issue of bad decisions or maybe bad association, whatever you can say, that demonetization, they were exposed to so many things. So I would say here it is a different thing than Infosys. But I agree that today the performance is not really evaluated when you look what happened, and that happens in all across in our country.
Ajay, it's probably too premature to speculate, but all of last year, there was so much talk and speculation around the possibility of a Kotak-Axis deal going through. Given what we've seen happen now, do you believe that that's a possibility that's back on the table?
Well, I would believe so, Shirin, because one, we got Bain Capital coming in, and so that to extent there is a good, powerful outside private equity investor in the bank. Valuation is pretty low compared to the branch network and the franchise that was inherited and continued to build. So I think it's a very attractive candidate at this point of time for anyone, but one doesn't know what's inside this bank. And I think that's the only thing holding back, that till the CEO steps aside and the new leadership brings everything onto the table. Till that time, it will be very difficult for someone to take such a big call to merge with an Axis Bank or kind of bank on what is the public books account available at this point of time. So my guess is that it's going to take a while. Things need to settle down before anybody would start to acquire this company or merge and so on and so forth, unless RBI deems fit. And it's pretty large institutions. These are not small institutions, so it's not easy to mix. But yeah, logically, well, Mr. Kotak needs to dilute. If they merge together, the automatic dilution, he meets the norm of dilution and has a very powerful bank, and the leadership issue gets resolved. So theoretically, all blocks fit in, but practically, I think we are at least a year and a half away before anything happens.
Absolutely. Lata's also with us. Lata, there has been this speculation, and now the Axis Bank board has finally put out an official statement suggesting that they have accepted Shikha Sharma's request, and hence her reappointment is now going to be cut down till the 31st of December. So I guess given the RBI's position, it was untenable for Shikha Sharma to continue.
Well, I think it is as plain as it looks. It does look like the Reserve Bank was uncomfortable with some of the things that happened at Axis. First was the demonetization time issues with that Kashmir-Gate employee. And that certainly was something that upset the Reserve Bank. And I would assume the government also that the management probably was not well in control of the peripheral branches. Then came, of course, the divergences. The divergences happened twice in a row. Then again, that reflected that the management was not in control or not, abiding by rules as much as the regulator would like. And then, of course, the WhatsApp forwarding of the results leak. But we must know the divergences happened also in HDFC Bank and more so in Yes Bank. Likewise, the WhatsApp leak happened in HDFC Bank also. And then, of course, finally, the likelihood of more NPAs now coming out because of the Reserve Bank circular. All four had, Axis Bank as the common factor. So I think the the central bank asking for a review of the extension is as clean as it looks. Yes, we thought that the management had these lapses, and therefore we want you to review and investors. I wouldn't go down that route. And given the current environment, I think favoring any one group or bank will be seen as suicidal by the government. So if anything, it puts back the clock on any such merger. I don't think we should connect it. I think this is clearly an Axis Bank issue. The management was found wanting by the regulator on ABCD, and that's why they have taken the decision that they have taken.
Yeah, Sanjeev Bhasin also with us. Sanjeev, so the news is now finally out. Shikha Sharma stays on for another 6 months. Her reappointment has been cut short. What do you make of the development, and what will it mean for the Axis stock?
So I think the Axis stock already had a whiff of this, and that's why the stock rallied sharply. I think most people, at least investors, would be glad to see the back of her, unfortunately. And secondly, it tells you, Shireen, that it's not just PSU banks which are in the realm of weak leadership. RBI's this step will have a welcome effect, I think, on investors, that at least they are going to bring more sanity on how the banks are run. And we know that unfortunately, Axis Bank had been in a lot of the wrong places, whether it was demonetization, whether it was results, whether it was NPAs. I think the stock anyway has seen a sharp upsurge. We will see who will be the new appointee and so on. But all in all, I think it bodes better time for both the PSUs and the private banks if the RBI is going to be more stringent and cognizant of a lot of the, maybe not wrongdoing, but some of the irresponsibilities which the leadership has shown.
Right. Amit Tandon also with us. Sanjeev, I'd request you to just hold on. Amit, so news coming in on Shikha Sharma, her request for reconsideration of her reappointment being cleared by the board, her tenure now cut short to December instead of the 3-year that it had been cleared by the board earlier. Do you believe that this is likely to now lead to regulatory intervention on the part of the Reserve Bank in the other matter, which is ICICI Bank? And on balance, the manner in which this has played itself out, what do you make of it?
Look, first let me begin with a disclosure that Axis Bank owns equity in IIS. But having said so, I think at this moment it's a decision which has been communicated to the board. And what is required is some degree of stability for an orderly succession to take place. And what this is doing is effectively ensuring that the board has sufficient time for an orderly transition from Shikha to whoever will take over from her. And in that sense, we should welcome the decision at this stage. Hopefully, the RBI will support it, because I'm sure, just given the volatility in the environment at this stage, they too will not want to kind of add to it at this moment. We have to remember that Axis is an important player in the system, and they will not want any sudden and disruptive changes in the market taking place.
But what do you make of the degree of transparency that we've seen being exercised in this particular instance? To start with, the board had cleared the reappointment in December. The Reserve Bank, are given to understand, has written to the board as recently as last month expressing its apprehension. The board doesn't come out and give any reasons as to why they have had this change of heart or what has led to this decision. Do you believe that there needs to be much more transparency so that people can really understand what's going on?
Look, at one level, I am in favor of transparency, and we can't kind of take it away. But at the end of the day, you don't want transparency to be disruptive for the market. So you have to balance between at what is appropriate and at what time. So given the fact there is a disclosure, there was a letter from the regulators which subsequently got disclosed. In that sense, you would have expected that there would be something before. But we don't know at this moment what the conversation was between the bank and the regulator. And at this stage, we don't know when they were planning to make that disclosure. But having said so, I do say that more orderly disclosure, as long as it's not disruptive to the market, and manage, and in that sense is kind of cognizant of what the impact would be, is always welcome.
Let me ask you a related question now, Amit, because, while in the case of ICICI Bank, like Axis, the board has come out in support of Chanda Kochar. Yes, she is not named in the preliminary inquiry. She has not been interrogated as of today. But the fact of the matter is that this is a matter that is being investigated. Do you see the Reserve Bank stepping in as it did in the case of Axis Bank, even in ICICI now?
I would think that there would be my sense is, given what has happened, RBI, there is every reason to believe that there would be in dialogue with the bank, and what the conversation is, what they're talking about, what is the information which various players in the market have is difficult for us to second guess at this stage. But I think it's a fair assumption to make that there is a discussion which is taking place. What it leads to, it's no point in speculating today.
No, absolutely. But are you in favor of Chanda Kochar stepping away till the time the investigative process and the investigative agency is given all clear? Because that seems to be the opinion of a lot of people who are tracking the stock, that perhaps and today Fitch has also come out with a report saying that this is a reputational risk for the bank. Do you believe that it would be fair for the board to perhaps ask for a leave of absence?
Look, our view, and which we kind of shared with our clients, was that the board should have handled this whole thing better. The time was that when the first story started, they should have hired and appointed an external person to look at it. Having missed the opportunity then, they should have done it when the stories resurfaced, bringing in an external counsel to look at what the developments are, would have been far more credible defense than what the board initially did come up with. So that is where we are on this issue.
Yeah, sorry, Amit.
Go ahead.
No, I was just getting a word in from Ajay. Ajay, you said that this is good news as far as the Axis Bank stock is concerned. But do you believe that the overhang will continue to weigh on ICICI Bank till we get to see some sort of conclusive move forward?
No, I think if this is an indication, Shireen, at least from the investor standpoint, the indication should be very clear that a decisive action will follow in the other bank as well. It's logical to conclude. Therefore, as far as investors are concerned, I think the positioning will start right away. And the second point is that I think the board of ICICI Bank should also be under a great amount of pressure now to respond to a situation that if they take this call and the regulator comes back like what's happened in Axis Bank and says, we question a call to keep the CEO going, then where does the board stand? So I think it's now, even the board is put on notice to an effect that would they respond to the development of Axis Bank in ICICI Bank. So on the whole, I think both the CEO and the board are on notice at this point of time, and therefore it will reach a logical conclusion. And I would not hesitate to say the logical conclusion would be for the benefit of shareholders who have suffered a lot with the most underperforming bank in the last 5 years. So, decision should come. And, you need to look back and also look at how this board was constituted. If you look at the ICICI Bank board, just see the way it was constituted, the decision they have taken, no comment on this huge NPAs. It's the legal head of Hindustan Liver who is the chairman of the bank, no financial experience at all for such a large financial institution. That's not the way you want to govern India's, one of the largest financial institutions of this country. So I think, as far as we are concerned, we should expect action to come at both ends. And the bank of ICICI Bank, the board of ICICI Bank, should be responding to this development very fast, or they'll be forced to respond. I think we can quibble about RBI is late, but I think RBI has acted finally. Yes, they're late, no doubt, but they're acting, and if this intervention continues, it's the greatest news for the banking industry of India and for the investors.
Lata, you had a point to make?
Yeah, just a couple of points going by the conversation. See, in the first place, I don't think the two banks' positions are comparable. If RBI had looked at the loan itself in 2016 when the first insinuations surfaced. And they have already said, or at least one of the papers even quoted, and I think you also sourced that information, Shireen, that they did not find any quid pro quo at that time. Then it is very difficult for Reserve Bank to come back 2 years later and say, yes, we found or they should. So I don't expect a suo moto action from the Reserve Bank on this. But now, if any action, something that will precipitate an action in ICSI will be only if an FIR is filed or if something negative is found by one of the investigative agencies. As of now, they have not even questioned Venugopal Dhoot and Deepak Kochhar, or for that matter, Chanda Kochhar. So that is not a precipitating action, but Fitch could be. If the rating agencies start saying that there is a reputation risk, that could precipitate some action. I seriously don't think that the action will come from Reserve Bank from the look of it. But just to come back to the Axis Bank thing, because of the Reserve Bank's February 12th circular, a lot of flushing out of NPAs will happen now. So just from Shikha Sharma's point of view, in December 2018, it's quite possible that actually there will be a rebound and balance sheets and P&Ls can start looking better than the previous quarter. So good for Shikha that she actually in December 2018 could leave on a high.
Right. Sanjeev, I just want to pick up on the point that Lata was making on the fact that Fitch today has said that while it's not moving on the rating, it has flagged the fact that the investigative action that is currently underway is a reputational risk. Now, how significant is that from a market perspective?
Yeah, so Shireen, it's ironic that it happens on a day where my ex-employer, Deutsche Bank, has also changed its CEO. And it's the fourth CEO which has been changed in the last 5 years, which tells you that globally the practice of perform or perish is on the offing. And it will be a very welcome step if, the RBI stroke the people in charge, the independent directors can take cognizance of that. And I'm not saying transparent in your internal moves, but more transparency for the shareholders who are willing to put money. So I think it's a very honorable exit for Ms. Shikha Sharma. Like you said, that when water has flown under the bridge, then the Fitches and the others come and alarm you. Where were they? 2 years back, where was the rating upgrade? Where was the finding? So I think perform or perish should be the bottom line for banks across the board, which will be very well welcomed by at least individual and institutional shareholders.
Right. Let me give the final say then to Amit Tandon before we take a break. Amit, it's ironic that we had, not ironic actually, we had the Financial Services Secretary with us on Friday speaking at our India Business Leader Awards, and he was very confident that this is going to be a year of cleanup for the banking sector and then growth. In light of everything that we've seen happen, starting with public sector banks and Punjab National Bank, and now what we're seeing happen with two of India's largest private sector banks, do you believe that this is going to be that year of cleansing for the Indian banking sector?
Look, it could well be a year of cleansing for the banking sector, but the question to ask is that what are the consequences this has for the economy? We've seen that the government-owned banks are pulling back from lending, and they're kind of increasingly focused on balance sheet lending. And now if you've got the two private sector banks, which were, in a sense, those lending to the corporate sector and had an opportunity to kind of jumpstart some of the businesses which were capital starved, what it means is that we are kind of pushing back economic recovery to a significant extent. So we'll not get into what's right, what's wrong, good quality credit, bad quality credit. It's more in terms of availability of credit for the market. And that is going to suffer as a consequence of these developments.
Ajay, would that concern you, the point that Amit is making? And, we've been hearing about this squeeze, so to speak, on lending and what that could mean in terms of an already recovering economy. How concerned would you be about that?
Flagging it for a long time, that this credit squeeze has already started from the time the PNB scam broke and the National Bank literally on March 31st, all our customers experienced huge amount of pressure. But that pressure is going to be, as we said, restricted to the small and the mid caps, because that's where the big hits have come in terms of their ability to access credits. I don't think it's going to have a problem with the large caps. I don't think it's going to have a problem with the semi-large cap as well, because they have access to credit from both the bond market, CP market, as well as the other major banks. I think it's a SME sector, which anyway was anyway on the downslide with all the demon, GST, everything put together, Shireen, which is going to take a bigger hit. But, I'm not so worried about that these two banks will have a problem lending. I think that's the big worry on the table today. The PSU banks were in a different segment. They were lending to different segments. If you look at ICICI Bank profile, 60% was money was going to retail credit, and there's enough NBFCs to pick up the slack for this thing. And, if you have a new leadership, I guess they will resolve the issues faster of the NPAs without any baggage, and they will see reinvigoration of credit. So temporarily, yes, but these two banks are focused more on retail. There is enough in NBFCs to take into account. I think the MSME problem comes from the PSU banks. These banks were lending to retail, which has enough people lending out to the market. So I'm not so worried about ICICI and Axis Bank trying to withdraw from the credit market if they have to withdraw for the next 6 months. Because the other thing which is going to happen is cleaning up the NPAs is going to release a lot of capital and resources to the economy. So if you clean up the stables in these two banks, I think you cleaned up a lot of stuff happening in the NPA sector.
Sanjeev, very quickly, how do you see the bank stocks and the bank Nifty doing tomorrow in light of these developments?
Well, I think Axis Bank already had a whiff of it, and you saw, a huge upsurge. It was at almost a month high, and I see no let up in that. I think it will be good news because any change of guard, like I said, is going to be well welcomed by the market. There could be new entrants. There will be to and fro till you get to know who the new leader is. But it's a very, very welcome step, and I think I would be actually looking for the banks to be trading on the higher side. Notwithstanding that 25,000 on the bank Nifty is an important resistance. If we do close above that, I think we are headed for better times.
Lata?
Okay, well, I just wanted to comment on what Ajay was saying. I don't think the economy really is affected, even if there is change of headship at some of the larger private sector banks. If there is a bankable project, money will always come. I don't think that's a big issue at all. At the moment, there aren't so many bankable projects anyway. It's only smaller term, kind of capex that is there. So I don't think the economy is, going to be affected. It's only with leadership change in these two banks that, one has to really ponder in ICICI, if there is one, which now looks like headed that way. The sense is that, the way the ICICI stock has been taking in all the news, and there is, enough and more bad news that's hitting them, it's actually clearly bottomed out. So I don't think from here on, the stock is going to react adversely. If anything, it will only react positively.
Let me go across to our colleague Ritu Singh, who's also, of course, been tracking this. And Ritu, we had put together that report card on Axis Bank a few days ago. Run our viewers through this in light of the developments that have taken place.
Well, Lata was just speaking about the stock, and let me just reiterate, since the asset quality review in 2015, the stock has already lost 20%. So, the bad performance of the financials of the bank have already been reflecting in the stocks. But as I said, just to give a very brief background, this is the third term that Shikha Sharma was serving as the MD and CEO of Axis Bank, which was set to end in June this year. Last year, the bank extended that by another term of 3 years, which was extended till 2021. Remember, very importantly, even last year, there was a lot of talk, there was speculation that Shikha Sharma was set to leave the bank. There were reports that she may consider joining the Tata Sons as their chief, as head of their banking operations. She was also, touted to head Bajaj Finance. There were several other such rumors. But in the midst of that, the bank decided to back her and give her a reappointment for another 3 years. But just to give a very quick picture of the performance of the bank, since everybody is highlighting the fact that gross non-performing assets of the bank, the profits of the bank have shrunk in the last few years, as has been the case with several other banks as well. For Axis Bank itself, the gross NPAs have jumped, in 2009 when she took over from 0.96% to 5.28%. Of course, the balance sheet has also grown. So if you look at in gross terms, the NPAs have risen from 1,073 crore rupees in December to almost 25,000 crore rupees as of 2017 December. So almost a 25 times, 25,000 crore, increase in the gross bad loans of the bank. Divergence issues also, as Lata was also highlighting, has been a big issue. Even for other banks like Yes Bank and ICICI bank. In this case, the divergences in gross NPA reported by Axis Bank was at 9,480 crores for FY16 and about 5,633 crores in FY17. That is the kind of divergence that the bank had to report. Of course, this is only after the Reserve Bank of India's directions to the board to explain why Mrs. Sharma was given another 4th term of reappointment as the head of the bank, that the board has now reconsidered, and Mrs. Sharma has offered to resign at the end of December, seeking only a 6-month term in the 4th term of reappointment.
All right, Ajay, Amit and Sanjeev Bhasin, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18 and taking us through your reaction on the developments that have taken place. It's happening quick. Shikha Sharma's reappointment cut short, will exit the bank in December pending the Reserve Bank's approval, which of course is a mere formality because this has been precipitated by the Reserve Bank's intervention itself. We'll take a quick break, but there's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere.